Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my house. We are live from Destin, Florida. I'm Kathleen, and I have a studio in Santa Rosa Beach called Chroma, but we've been here in my house and you at your house for the last 3 weeks, and we're kind of on a roll, so we're going to keep going. Thank you for all of the messages, encouraging messages, and emails that you've been sending, and I too have been thinking about what is the best way to stay connected once this is over. So should I continue painting live demos? Should I create more formal edited versions of the classes, or should I create a group that we can all share our art in? And so those are some of the things that we're thinking of, but if you think you would be interested in anything like that, please send me a message and let me know that we are on the right track. Good morning, Erica. All right, last week we did our floral study and we went way over 2.5 hours. In fact, my phone died, and this week we have additional power. I think we have to plug in. We have additional power, so that's not going to happen. And we are looking at improving our technology even further to add some additional camera angles and things like that in the future that will be very helpful, I know, to you. I am joined today by Justin Broderick, once again, who is in the comments with you, and I wanted to thank him as always for his help. And today's plan is the pears. So I did this study over the weekend. In fact, I was thinking, should we do 1 pair or 2 pairs? So you see, I kind of did both. But I decided to go with the 2 pairs. I think it's a little bit more interesting, even though the 1 pair is a little simpler, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I think that I wanted to do something simple this week, and I thought of pears, but what I found when I did my study was that I really go through the same process of painting, whether it's pears or whether it's florals or whether it's something even more complicated. So the form of the pear is simpler, but I still think about lines, I still think about the shapes, I still think about the values next to each other and the colors. And so in that respect, it's the same process. So is a floral more difficult than a pear? Maybe not. It's just kind of some food for thought, that if you've got your painting process down, you kind of can paint anything, right? Because you can figure out the shapes and the lines and the colors, and it becomes simpler. So I did want to mention that because it took me over 2 hours to paint this pear over the weekend, so it didn't turn out to be as simple as I thought. And I'm not sure how long we'll go today, but we'll just take as long as it takes. And I will tell you what supplies I'm using today. I'm using the same colors, the same golden fluid acrylic colors that I have been using, and I tried to pare down the colors to about 6 colors that I use that can be mixed to get anything, and those are 2 yellows, 2 blues, and 2 reds. And so we have a Hansa yellow and an Indian yellow that we'll be using. We have an ultramarine blue, and we have a manganese blue, which I love. And we have a naphtol red and a quinacridone magenta, which I'm kind of running out of. And those are the basics, but I do like to throw in a little phthalo green if you have it. Again, I mentioned this last time, but it is a tricky color, and I hesitate to recommend it to beginners because it's so strong, it's so overpowering, it can take over, and it's kind of an unnatural look. So you really have to mix this well with your oranges and yellows and get a more natural color. So we'll be doing that today because these pears are green, and so green is a challenge, and it was a challenge to kind of get that right green, but yet have it have a nice yellowy look to it as well. So that was what I was having a challenge with over the weekend. Let's see. Oh, I will be painting on turn the camera. An 8x8 today. It is a gallery wrap canvas that I got from Blick Art Supply. And we have our black and white that you've printed out. And so you know what we do. The first thing we do with the black and white is we fold it in half each way. And I do this so that I can find the center. And I put a little dot in the center, and then I break it up into my 4 quadrants. So I've already got one up here that I'm going to use, but I wanted to show you how I start. And this is a value study. And it's a simple way to get a value study. A lot of people draw their value studies with pencil or marker, and that's that's something you would have to do if you wanted to do one when you're painting outside in plein air. But I found that this works for me when I'm painting in the studio. Right, so then I'm going to look at my black and white, and I'm going to start drawing the painting from my black and white. I'm not looking at the color version yet. So to draw, I'm going to add a little bit of this nice Indian yellow and a touch of red. Not too much, because that red really takes over. But I want a nice watercolory orange look. And I know some of you are painting along with me in watercolor. So this first the first step will be very familiar to you. See how watery it is? But it's a really pretty orange. That Indian yellow makes a really nice orange. So then I'm going to try to find my center on my canvas. So I'm going to go boop and then measure to see how close I was. Pretty close this way, and then up and down. It needs to come down just a wee bit. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I don't want a strong line in there to peek through. So I've got my paper towels, which I use. Oh gosh, I didn't put my gloves on. You do not want to see my hands without gloves on.
Good question real quick.
Yeah.
Lisa asks, how do you decide what color to underpaint?
You know, it really is personal preference. I see a lot of artists who do they paint their whole canvas a certain color and paint on top of that. Like, have you seen artists that paint red underneath, and that red really kind of pops through in different areas? I like to paint with an orange, a yellowy orange, or sometimes I use, let's see, this one. It's a transparent red oxide, kind of like a burnt sienna, because it really gives a really golden underpainting, and I like the way that it pops out from my paintings. And I tend to paint with a lot of cooler colors too, a lot of blues and things like that. So when you get that gold peeking through the blue paint, I don't know, I really like it. So I guess the answer is kind of that it's personal preference. Just have to kind of play around a little bit and try it out. I've tried to paint with that red, just painting all red and painting on top of that, and that is interesting. I would give that a try if if you're doing some experimentation. All right, so then I'm back to my black and white and looking at the lines. Remember, lines, the first thing that we're going to look at in the painting. And like I said, this is a simpler form, so this part of the painting will be simpler, will be easier for beginners. And I look at this first quadrant, right? And I start at the middle and look, where are these lines within this square right there? And I start from the middle. And so we have the edge of that pear. It's just kind of off. I hate to place anything on that center, so I'm going to place it a little to the right of it. And this top part is kind of like a triangle, right? So that's easy. I'm going to paint that in there and get that stem in nicely. Now at this point, I don't mind if things are a little thicker than I want it to be ultimately, or not quite as refined, because this is the place to get your shape and your overall pleasing composition. So I'm actually going down here, if that kind of feels right, and then this, what we could do is we could even just like draw a big old circle here, right? And get our shape, our pear shape that way. Now we don't want it to be like, oh, there, thank you. We don't want it to be like perfect, a perfect circle pear. We want it to be kind of fatter on one side and maybe, thinner on the other, or just kind of a little more lopsided, because that's always a little more interesting. So I'll have to remember that when I start to paint the layers on top. And then I'm going to go into this quadrant, right? And so this pear is poking a little bit over here. And what I want you to be looking at right now is that beautiful little shape right there. Remember, we talked about the negative shapes that are so important in a painting, and they help you to draw the painting accurately by trying to draw that shape instead of the pear shape. So I've got, that might be a little close. Let me move that over. We kind of come down a little bit. We could do the same thing. We could make this kind of a little triangle here with our little circle bottom. This pear has to feel like it's behind that pear. So we have to remember to make this one kind of go over that one. And the bottom is, don't make the bottom the same, on the same horizontal. This one is up just slightly, and it will give you a little bit more interest in your painting. So I made these a little bit bigger than I did in my study over the weekend, but I like it. I think it's going to work. I had a little bit more table showing. So there's that beautiful reflection down in the bottom. Let's just indicate where that shape is. So it's kind of just, remember, let's look at that shape right there, right there. That's a good helper with our painting. Okay, good. So you should be pretty happy with your drawing, and if not, then go ahead and take your paper towel, dip it in some water, and try to scratch out and make sure that you like it at this stage. It's really important to get these good bones down in the beginning. Now, one more thing I'm just going to do before we move on is I'm just going to try to look and give myself some hints as to where these value shapes might be. What I mean by that is we have the light coming over here, and so this whole area is kind of one value. There's now I'm looking back at the color version as well, which is super hard to see values on this yellow pear. If I didn't have this black and white or a value study, it would be very hard to paint, I think. But you can see in the black and white where the light is. So we've got a little shadow here, but this is all pretty much light. I did make this middle area slightly darker. I see just a slight difference in there, and that'll help create the form if we are a little bit more aware of that slight difference in there, and not make that just one flat value. Then over here, we've got this shape right in here, kind of darker, very, very dark on the edge. Then it kind of goes, this is all very light, right? But then there's like a little half tone in here, which will give us some interest and help create that round form. So I just want to be aware of where that is. And I've been drawing on the black and white for you, but I really need to do that on my painting, don't I? Just to help me with where it's going next. It's okay to block in with a shape, very light shape at this point. Good. Yeah, I like it. So I'm going to continue to paint in a very watercolory feel, but I'm going to switch colors now. And I like to paint the darks first. So I'm looking at my black and white and my color, but I'm looking for the darkest areas. And it's pretty easy to see on the pear. There's not a lot of it. In fact, it's going to be really, really subtle, but important to get these right there, right along the edge here, underneath, right here, up in the top here, underneath here. So those are going to be the dark, dark areas. And what I'm going to do is mix up, let's see, a blue on my ultramarine blue. And actually, you know what? I'm going to add another color. I showed you this earlier. This is my transparent red oxide, iron oxide, and it's kind of like a burnt sienna if you have that, right? And this is one of my favorite combinations to get a dark or even a black. I don't paint with black. I think it's because I started painting as a watercolorist, and that was a big no-no back then. But I like it because it just gives a more dimension to your dark without using true black. So if I mix my called it burnt sienna, my transparent red oxide and my ultramarine, I get a really pretty brown. So it can lean a little bit more towards the brown, or if you put blue in it, more blue, it'll lean a little towards the blue. But I think that this nice transparent brown is going to help us get those darks in there. I still want some water in there. I don't want this to be thick. I don't want it to be opaque. Okay, back to the painting, and let's try to put some of that in. Looks like a pear already. And I think I'd like a little bit more brown. So I'm going to add some more of that red oxide, because that's more of a blue, isn't it? And there is that, I mean, it is kind of brown under on that left side, even going farther over here. So we're not going to be, I think it'll be helpful to get that in. And I added a little yellow in it for this, right along here. And that'll make a nice warm underglow. I'm back into the little bluer on the edge here. And you really have to look, you know, to sometimes I have students that say, I can't see those colors that you're seeing, and you really have to look, because if you look at this color photo of the pears, you know, it's hard to see blues in there, and it's hard to get the subtle colors that will add so much in the painting. I think I got a little, I've got a little of my red kind of mixed in there too. I'm gonna go a little bluer under here for this shadow. This is a little, here. Remember how I said I didn't want to make such a perfect form, so I'm noticing that I need a little bump out maybe on top here to help it be more peary. There we go. Mixing my oxide red with my yellow, back to my kind of orange, because I feel like if I went over here a little bit, it wouldn't hurt with a little orange underpainting. Why don't we just paint the whole thing with this nice watercolor that we've made? Give it a nice warm glow. Okay. I'm going to move over to the next one, and there's not so much brown on this side of this one. There is a little bit, so I probably just want to put in a little underpainting up here. See that nice brown kind of little scar in the painting that goes down there, a little browner area here. And I'm going to go back to more of a yellow over here on this side, just for now. I do see blue, and I'm going to come in with blue on the next go round. But right now I'm just going to put a light yellow in there to continue our yellowy feel. I'm adding a little bit of my Hansa yellow for this top part, because it's very bright up here, and it's in the in the light. Put a little over here. Oh, goodness. Well, we'll just work with that. Sometimes these happy accidents turn out all right. I'm gonna leave that in there just because it happened. Okay. Maybe I'll put a little over here. Oh, okay, let's dip into the bluer mixture with my brown and indicate where this shadow is. Soften that line a little bit. There. Remember, we've got that nice shape there. Looking okay. I think I'm gonna put a little of my yellow down here because I see a lot of that reflection of yellow, and that wouldn't be a bad thing to pop in there at this point. Good. All right, I'm going to stand back, and I recommend that you do too and have a look at your paint. Good. I like it. I do want just a wee bit more contrast in here with that color. Oh, and I didn't put that dark part of the stem in, which I'll do. There's not so much of a shadow there. These kind of have run together a bit. I'm going to have to be careful about going in and kind of opening that up. I'm going to put this little bump, this little line in there to remind me that there's a nice little bump there. Good. If you're working on a gallery wrapped canvas, you can kind of go off on the sides a little bit. Some people prefer to just paint their sides one color. That's an option too. And I'm going to put my palette down and look at my color photo right now to see where I want to go next. Yeah. I think that I would like to put some blue into these darks, but it's kind of wet still, and if I put it in right now, it's going to mix with that brown and get maybe a little muddy. So I'm going to wait to do that, and I'm going to look at more of my middle value on the pears, and we'll come back to the darker one. So I'm going to get a fresh palette because I don't want any of my browns in this mixture, and I'm going to squirt out a little bit of phthalo green. Mine doesn't come out very fast, which is a good thing. Keeps me from using as little as possible. I'm going to squirt out some Hansa yellow, some of my Indian yellow, some red. Well, should I wait on that red? Let me wait on the red. and some white. I didn't mention the white. Those of you that have been with me in previous classes know that I use gesso for my white. That big tub is about a $60 to $70 tub of gesso. But it's a lot cheaper than buying little tubes of white paint. So I don't recommend it for you, but for me, it works really good with sharing it with my classes when we used to do in-person classes. Now it's only for me. Okay, so I'm looking at that middle greeny, yellowy, it's like a lemon lime kind of a color. And I'm going to switch to a little, larger brush. See the nice tip on that brush? Very nice. And let's see, I'm going to zoom out just a wee bit so that you guys can see more of this, because mixing greens is not easy. All right, start with a touch of my green and my yellow. More yellow than green. And you see that color, which in small quantities on this painting could be okay, but I think it's much too sweet to use as a base color here. So I put a little white in it. I put a little of my Indian yellow to warm it up. And that's warming it up quite a bit. Put more of that. If you don't have the two yellows, put just a wee bit of red in there, just to knock it down a little off of its high intensity. I'm going to put a little more of my ounce yellow in. And then I'm going to just kind of try it, see if I like it. I mean, that's pretty bright in itself, isn't it? I think it needs to be a little lighter. Put a little more white and a little more of my Indian yellow. I was wondering if I could get away without putting any red in it at this point. I'm just going to put a little bit. Little red goes a long way. Sometimes too far. So that is a really nice color for, yeah, that might work. Okay, good. I thought it might be a little different on the palette, but when I put it on here, it looks pretty good. Okay, so remember up here we talked about that middle kind of a little value in there. So I'm gonna put in some of this color here in this middle value. And I know that in previous classes you have asked about how do you get those nice blended edges. And this is a painting where you definitely want some blended edges because, well, it depends on your style, right? But I'm taking my brush that is clean and I'm kind of softening my edges a little bit. If we had all of our paint colors all mixed up, we could just try to put them on real quick and blend them all together, and that would work too. There's a real green edge over here. Put that in. This isn't necessarily my final color on here. I want to refrain from being too fussy because I see all these pretty little green bits over here on this side, but it's really not the right time or place to go into that yet. So I'm trying to be patient and just think about the big shape, right? And I want to soften that up a little bit. And you know what, while it's still wet, let's do a little wet and wet painting. And I'm squirting out a bit more yellow. Let me zoom in so you all can see a bit more of the brush strokes. And now I'm looking at kind of right in here. It's a little more lighter yellow, and up into here. Even down here where you're kind of getting some light reflection down here. We want to mix up a little white with that yellow. And thinking that the paint is still wet, I'm going to be able to go into that nice and really softly. But you know how I still love to have that orangey peeking through there, so I want to be cognizant of that. Yeah, on the edge is a little warmer yellow. I'm going to leave that alone for now. And then you can use your fingers as a blending tool if you'd like. I think that I'm going to put a little, oops, gosh, pure white. Do you see how that just looks awful? I don't like using pure white. I'm going to try to get in a little of that light reflected area down there. And so what's here is a little warmer. I'm going to go back to my Indian yellow, which is now mixed with a bit of green, and put some white in there. So I'm looking to get a warmer yellow right here. This is kind of a cool yellow. I'm wiping off my brush a little too before I go in here because I don't want it to be thick or gloppy at this point. And keeping a little of that mistake popping through. So it's not really much warmer, is it? I might need to add more. There. That's good. Oops. Got a lot of squirted out quite a bit. We go up in here. Remember where we said this was a little warmer? I'm pretty much using just my straight Indian yellow as I'm going in here and mixing a little bit because it is kind of a little wet still, and I'm able to gently blend that in. Okay. I think that I'd like to move to the next one. I always like to leave my painting in a rather unfinished state and work the whole painting at one time so that I can get a similar kind of a feel. If I was to paint this whole pear and then move on to this whole pear, they might have a different feel to them. Plus, it leaves your options open, you know, to paint other colors that come up. I mean, add other colors into what you've already painted. If it's all done, then I guess you could add on top of it, but I really like to follow my process, which is different for every painter, but it involves keeping that unfinished look throughout. All right, so back to this middle value green that we mixed up. We're kind of going in here a little bit with that.
And Judy has a question.
Yes?
She's asking, what color did you use to get that green in the middle?
Yeah, that was just a teeny bit of the phthalo green, and then at first I mixed the phthalo green with the yellow, the bright yellow, but that was too strong. Then I added some Indian yellow, and it still wasn't quite right, so then I added just a wee bit of red and white, of course. So you're trying to kind of just knock down that real intense green that could take over and not look natural. And so if you're going for a natural look, then you want to mix a little bit more. Remember I said I wanted to put some blue in here, so I'm kind of leaving that open. And I'm going into my yellow, and I think I'll go mix a little of the two yellows together here. See how that looks? Now it needs a little more of that warm yellow over here. And this is pretty much just the Indian yellow.
Everyone's saying they look awesome, gorgeous already.
Oh, thanks. Well, and you can see how, you know, the form starts to take shape through your use of value and really color at this point. Right now we have, you know, we have this is going to get much darker. This is our middle value, and then this is a lighter value here that'll even get even lighter. So they'll even come to life. They'll come to life as we continue to paint. But you can start to see a little bit of that final, what it might look like in the end in these early stages. So I'm into the yellow now a little bit around this edge. Where I got in trouble, I'll tell you, over the weekend was that I was mixing too much green into the yellow areas, and it just didn't feel right. I really had to go in with more yellow. They didn't feel peary. So I back into this little green over here because I see that over here. That middle area is a little tricky because it's got some things going on there that we will get to later, but I'm just going to soften it up a little bit. And you know what we can do is just put a little dab down here while it's on the brush still. We've got a lot of cool colors going on down here. There. I think that's pretty good. Just a little change in there. I might come back in with a little brown in this area. All right, mixing, cleaning my brush, and I'm gonna go to my favorite manganese and squirt out a little bit of that. And some white. Oh, in mine, I see that little hint of blue that I put in initially, but I want to enhance that a little bit. So I'm mixing up kind of a dark mixture of blue. Because it's going to be in the shadow, and I'm really looking for areas to put that in that shadow, and much of this might be covered up, you know, in the end, but I like the idea of adding a little bit of a coolness into the painting, because it's so warm, so I'm exaggerating, you know, what I think is a cooler area over here with this blue. Now over on this side, it's a little lighter. It's not so dark, maybe. I want this to feel like it's behind the other. I like that little brown. I don't want to cover that up totally. A little down in the shadow. Okay. Now, I think I'm going to do the background. And I like to put the background in at this point because it helps to tell you the direction to go with your subject. You need that to know what it's going to feel like with this color next to that color, to know if you need to darken or lighten any of your subjects. There is not a table line in the drawing, but I like to feel like the pears are sitting on something. So I'm going to put in a horizon line. And it also gives us a little more interest to put a different color here than up here. And if you have If you have two reds, if you have a alizarin crimson and a more of a true red, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a base of this white and magenta mixed up as the first layer of the background.
And remind us, it would seem so easy just to put the background in first and then paint everything around it, but why don't we do that?
Well, it is easy to do that. And you might like to do that. But let me scoop out my white and I'll come over here and show you while I talk. There you go. Kind of mixing up a mid value. I don't want it to be super heavy. I'm going to put a little water in it. And then I'm going to start. And then this is why I don't like to do the background first, because you really look and see the shapes of your painting better when you're going around them. And I have green mixed in here. That's not good. I had some green on my brush. But I'm really looking at this pear shape right now again. And so we looked at it once when we first drew it. Now we're refining it, and look, I'm able to carve a little bit and make it more of the shape that I want. So if we were just to put the background in first and then put our subject on top of there, mine's a little too runny, then you don't get the benefit of looking at it twice and refining your shapes. And I think that it helps you to look at these negative shapes, especially right in here, that are so important in making your painting interesting and really creating the form. You know, space is one of the elements of art that helps a painting look realistic. And by space, I mean looking at this negative space as well as the positive space that's the shape of the subject. And I noticed that I need a little extra bump there, so I left that little white part to remind me to go in with some additional color there. I like when a painting kind of goes off the canvas like that too. So on this side we have a little background color, but on this side we don't. And then look, we get an extra bonus negative space here by making this tabletop and while I'm at it, I'm just gonna paint my sides here. Because that's always sometimes something that you have to think about at the end and try to recreate the color, and is sometimes difficult. Oh, look, I have a little peaky spot down here. I like that, of background. Am I in your way? You're seeing my hair and not the painting, I think, at this moment. But that's okay, I'm just painting the sides. So we're definitely not done with this background. This is just a kind of a first go around. It's a simple background, but I have some more plans for it. Good. All right. And notice how I didn't go into this area because I feel that I need more of that shape of the pear on top of my background. And that's another benefit to painting that background in at this point is that we're pushing this paint into the subject, and then we're gonna pull the subject out again when we go back in and paint on top of the background. All right, so I'm gonna stand back and look, see where I need to go next. Wipe the paint off my arm and clean up a little bit. You know what? Now that I stand back, I see, which is good. Seeing is the key to painting. That this is not the right shape. It needs to be a little bigger. And see how that side's a little different than this side, right? And I can go into here with this background color, and I think all these little areas that you poke background color in are so helpful to the painting, like poking it in there. I love orange and pink together. It's really a good combo. Okay. It kind of goes in a little there. Good. It's a little wonky, which is okay, because that's gives it a little character. I'm going to now switch around a little bit and mix up a light green and a light yellow, which will be more of the lightest areas of the pear. So I can go back to my palette that I was using. It's a little crowded. Maybe I'll get another plate, and let's zoom out a little bit. So actually I will start with another little plate because I want to show you the two piles. Make two little piles of white paint, like that. And I've got pink in one, so I'm going to try to get that out. And in one of the piles, I'm just going to put my really bright Hansa yellow. And probably all of it for now. See how that works. And in the other one, I'm gonna steal some of that middle green to start with, kind of mix it in there, and then add a teeny bit of my phthalo green. It's better to put in less and then have to go back for more. Yeah. And it's very tricky at this point because I don't want it to be, I want these light areas on the pear to be very, I don't want them to look white, you know, so I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to that. Kind of make it a little more lemony feeling instead of a minty. You know, you could use a little minty color on here as an accent, but I wouldn't use it as a majority of the color. So I need more to mix up more of my yellow and white. So let's just do an experiment. See what that color is on my plate? I bet that looks too light. I bet it looks white almost when we put it down in what would be our lightest area. Because if you look at the color photo, it's really hard at this point to separate those values. But on our black and white, we see that this whole area is lighter than that and that, right? So in mine at this stage, they're not. They're the same. So we want to bring out the lighter areas of the pear. But watch this. Let's see what happens. Oh, zoom. Let's zoom. It's hard to zoom with gloves on. And forget about tape. Don't ever try to get tape off while you have gloves on. That does not work. All right, so I'll put a little bit on. And let's see. You know, I think it kind of works, but it looks too light to me. It looks too white, and the pear is yellow, so I'm gonna put more yellow in it. So let's just get more yellow and see what happens as we yellow it up. That's pretty good. Back to the green. Kind of just mixing. There is a nice bright green in that area. Oh, look at that. See how minty that looked? That is not good. Nope, still not good. Ooh. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we're gonna take a little intermission now. I'm gonna need your help with the tape. Isn't that funny? I just said that about you can't use tape with gloves on. But look at what happened in my painting. So I'm gonna wipe it off. I always tell my students that, you know, with acrylic, we could just paint right over it. So I'm gonna be doing that. This might not be the strongest tape for that, right?
Try the blue one.
Maybe the blue one, yeah.
Okay.
Time to get a snack, go to the bathroom, write a text message.
How big?
I definitely want a piece like that on each
Okay.
side, yeah.
On every side?
Yeah.
Okay. So how you do it? The triple wrap like that?
No, I don't do that. That looks very strong.
Maybe.
Yeah. If you've just joined us, we are having little technical difficulties. We're retaping the canvas to go back up as it fell down. I think somebody did just join. Oh, they're on. They said nothing going on here.
One more?
Yeah, one more.
Let's not let it fall again.
Yeah, sorry everybody. We'll be done in just a few seconds. Okay.
Let's get these off there.
Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Back on. Oh,
That's really gonna stay.
I want to really push it on there. There we go. Well, that didn't hurt too much. All right, back to business. What were we doing? Oh, we were looking at our light areas. I'm going to switch brushes because I'm going to see if I can use my bigger brush. And okay. Let's see, that's a pretty bright green, isn't it? But there are some bright areas in here. So I'm just going to put that in there to kind of remind myself of that color. And then go back to that edge that we were kind of looking at in the real yellow. A little green in there. I don't want to cover up all of that pretty undercolor, right? I want to be what's the word? Diligent, or I want to be thoughtful with considerate with my strokes.
See if I can just tilt it around.
Okay. Yeah, that's so what ended up working, I think, was more of a straight yellow and not a lot of white, because the white, I think it just whitened it out too much to where it really wasn't very Perry looking. And so this darker yellow is gonna, I think it's reading like the light area, do you think? I'm going to zoom in a little more. And I'm really looking at my my black and white to help me figure out where I need to go. Where is this light area? Looking at the big shapes. And in the same way that we did in the more complicated paintings now, you know, we had a very simple form when we drew the outline of the pears, but it is complicated, or not complicated, but you know, we're doing the same process that we did with the florals and the rooster and the chick, where we're trying to find the little shapes now within the larger shape. And I really like standing back at this point to get a feel for how it's coming along. It's really hard to see the big picture so close. And then on this one, we know that this whole edge here is pretty light. Now it gets kind of greeny. I'm going to dip into my green a little and see if that works here on the side. Back to my yellow. But down here is kind of a warmer yellow, isn't it? So I'm going to add a little bit of Indian yellow. I still want it to kind of feel like it's in the sun though, right? Oops, got that. See how that just looks white. You don't really mix it. Oh, that's kind of good. That's good. All right, so that is the Indian yellow and white. And that makes a really nice little warm white. I mean, warm yellow here that I really like. Stand back a little bit. I'm going to keep true to my values, right? I'm looking up here, looking at that big area of light, light, light. And remember I said how I like to keep it unfinished. Well, this is a good example of why, because see, now I mixed up this cool color that I really liked putting over here, and now I can go back over here and put some over here as well. And I'm looking at my color. Still need to get lighter though, don't I? Yeah. But it's coming along. So now I'm going to go into my yellow and white and a little down here. This is such a great shadow and reflection of color Put a little green in there. And I got this photo from Pixabay, which is a free-to-use photo website. And if any of you artists follow Carol Marine, I read about it on one of her emails recently. Because, you know, we're always looking for good references that we can use for painting. I like Flickr as well, but on Flickr you have to sort them by Creative Commons if you want to get ones that are able to be used and don't have any kind of copyright on them. And I think Pixabay has some like that too. They seem like they're affiliated with Shutterstock, which is a company where you can buy photos. But it was awful nice of them to give us some free too. So I'm leaving a little bit of that nice brown peeking through. It's so helpful in a colorful painting to have some neutral. And that's what we'll do with the table too, is we'll put a nice neutral-ish color in there. All right, I'm going to go back into my darks, or darker areas here, and we'll come back. I think the middle values are looking pretty good. These are getting a little lighter, but they're not as light as we need them. So let me really get in that good dark now. And so I'm going to go and I'm going to mix up. I think I'm going to go back to try to get a nice brownish color. So I've got back to my blue and my red, transparent red oxide, or if you have burnt sienna, that's good too. And those are two transparent colors. And that was great for when we originally did our watercolor wash, but I want this to be a little more opaque now. So I'm gonna put some white into my mixture and see what kind of brown I get there. And that's a real cool brown, and I want this to be a warmer brown. So I'm going to mix in some of my Indian yellow, maybe even a little dab of red. And it's light, it's too light. So back in the blue, back in the transparent. This is one of those colors that you kind of mix longer than you paint with. But it's important that you get the right color. So, I know it's frustrating sometimes to feel like you're just mixing and mixing forever, but it's worth it. So I'm going for a warm brown. I want more yellow. That's kind of getting close, I think. Maybe I'll try it. Since I'm mixing with my brush, which I don't usually do, and I don't recommend. It gets kind of gloppy, and then so I have to pull out that paint to get my nice sharp edge again. If I'm in my studio painting, I paint with a palette knife to mix my colors, but it's really hard to mix palette knife on these styrofoam plates I found. All right, so over here, let's see what that looks like. That's really nice. It's maybe not dark enough for what we need, but it's a lovely color. I kind of like it. Maybe I'll put a little bit over here as we're transitioning into the middle value. And it's at this point where you can, you're going to get hard edges. So I just dipped into my water a little, and so I'm making this more of a kind of a little wash to make it a little softer. I really like the color. See how the neutral plays so well with your more intense colors. Kind of break into that blue again, because I really just want that to be a kind of peeking through accent. All right, I'm using too much. Back to trying to get a little darker on the edge there. So I just mixed together my ultramarine blue and my transparent oxide red, and just added just a touch of white this time, just a little bit. And that really, that brown is probably pretty close to what's in the picture, and that's on your edge here. Now you have to think, are you okay with this hard edge over there? And so I think I am. Because it is kind of, if you squint your eyes, it's definitely a sliver, a shape of dark color over here. I'm going to go back in and mix up a little more red oxide, because there's a little bit of a warmer, maybe a little more yellow. Yeah, there's a little warmer area, and boy, doesn't blue and brown look good together? That's a good combo. I'm back into my really dark mixture here at the bottom. And I'm gonna wipe off my brush and then just kind of flick some of that out and that shadow. Just kind of there. I'm gonna use my really dark brownie color up here in the stem on the edge. I think that's kind of too straight of a line there. So I'm gonna, it's not really that thick and it's not that straight. There we go. So I'm gonna just vary it a little bit, and I just wiped it out. Okay, over to the number 2 pear, and same thing, little edge of the stem. Gotta mix up a little more. And you see how adding this really dark value helps to, I mean, it's just another layer of the painting progressing, you know, and coming together. Okay, so do I want to go down into here with my brown? I have this nice blue in there. Probably a little bit, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't like really that hard edge over there so much. I'm gonna clean my brush and soften it up a little on the edge with some water. Down here. And then I'm going to switch and go to my lighter brown that I had mixed up over here a little bit into this blue. And I'm going to wipe off my brush and just kind of see what happens if I just drag it a little bit to make that shadowy kind of a dark line. Yeah. So I'm painting with a lot of water. I guess you're trying to blend it into these areas so I don't get such hard lines. Yeah, that needs a little yellow and white, not really that brown. I'm gonna have to go back into that. This is kind of different kind of a painting for me, to really be smushing the paint around a lot. Usually I like to, you know, pick up my paint and like put it down, you know, with one stroke, and then pick up more paint and put it down. So this is just, you know, different way. Different way of going about it. All right, so I want to make sure this really feels like it's sitting on the table. It's got that nice dark shadow, but I like that blue under there too, because I do. You could probably see the most color in that shadow, right? I see blue and green in there, and of course the pink. This area down here is a little browner. Ooh, you know what? I just kind of stood back and looked at that, and that's kind of got a nice feel to it. It's fun when you when you're not really looking at what you're painting like as a thing, but you're just painting what you see and the shapes and values and colors, and then you look back and you're like, whoa, that's really a pear or really a flower. And that's pretty cool when that happens. Okay, let's do the table, and I'm gonna the table color is pretty simple. I'm gonna use white, and I have some white here that's not really clean, but it doesn't matter for the table. So I'm gonna use that. It has a little pink in it. Now I'm gonna add a little blue and make a light purple. And this is going to work really well because the pears are green, and green is no, the pears are green, and the complement of green is red, which why that looks so good together. And then we've got all this nice yellow, and the complement of yellow is purple. So that's a nice addition to your painting as well. It's gonna look really good next to the yellow. And believe it or not, this purple is gonna be kind of a neutral. So don't make it too dark. I'm still mixing. Mixing. And I had a little of yellow sneak in there, which is not a bad thing, because when you mix yellow and red and blue, it gives you kind of a gray. And that's a good neutral, but you can see that it's leaning a little purple. Let me see, is that dark enough? I think it might be, because I like the lightness of the table. I think it kind of tells you that it could be a white table, that these pears are reflecting this color off. Because if it was a different color table, you wouldn't get this pretty reflection. And do you see how that, I mean, that looks white, even though I've been mixing, putting blue and red into this mixture, it looks white up against the colors that are there now. So everything is relative. You really have to put it down to see how it's going to work, how it's going to play with the colors around it. Yeah. Got a little darker over there. It just looks just a little too white for me, so I'm going to go back in here. And then we've got this great shape right here that we want to be attentive to. And I'm gonna peek it down here, and it'll help kind of say, ooh, I'm a table underneath here. When you get that little peaky quality of what's going on underneath. Yeah. And step back. It's coming together. Okay, we need some lights. So next steps are going to be lights and finishing the background, and then final touches. So back to my plate with my yellow and green. And I'm mixing white into that green to get a really super light green. And I'm going to see how that works with the highlight up here on the stem. Because if you look really closely at the color photo, it looks green. I'll see how that works. I'm just going to lightly touch it down. That works for me. And then there's a highlight. In fact, I'm loving this light green right now to help me pop this pear a little bit more too. In these lighter areas. So even though it's not maybe totally what I'm seeing as far as the color, if it's working for you and it's in the right value, you can get away with changing the color. Now I do see a very cool shadow or highlight kind of right here and then right going through here. Do you see that? It could be blue, it could be this light green color. I'm going to put that in over here, see how it looks. Give it the old smudge. Okay. See how that looks there. Yeah, I don't want it to cool it up too much. I'm gonna go back into the yellow. So yellow and white, we're back to you. Now, okay, I put that in, but I feel that I need to blend it a little with what's going on around it. So I clean my brush and I'm dipping into some pure yellow. So I have a clean brush, pure yellow, and I'm going to mix it around with what I just put on there. And I think this will help really yellow it up while hopefully giving us some of this lighter value that we need. So I'm putting in that light value. It's reading a little too white and chalky for me. So then I'm cleaning my brush and I'm going into the straight yellow with water to kind of soften it and mix it around a little. And then I'm feeling Indian over here, Indian yellow. And yeah, I think that's just you know, kind of a hard part about painting pears is, you know, don't want it to look chalky with the white, but I want it to feel very yellow. But then how do you get those highlight areas? right? So here too, there's a nice light strip in here. I want to put in with my white and yellow. Whoa. And yeah, I'm cleaning off my brush and then gonna go back into my light green for this edge a little bit. I didn't put the highlight. There's not really a highlight like there is on the left pear on the stem, but there is a lighter area. So with a little of my Indian yellow and white, let's see how that looks. No, it needs to be a little darker. Yeah, actually I like that along this edge too. And then when that dries a little bit, I'll go back in and put just a wee bit of that highlight in there as well. But yeah. Okay. All right, so now back to the background. And remember I originally put in the magenta and white as the background color. And now I'm going to mix up another pink. And I'm going to use a different red. I'm going to use my naphthol red, which is kind of like, you know, your pure red with white. And that's going to produce a little warmer pink. And it's going to, I think it's going to play really well with this cooler pink. So red and white together. This is fun. This is the fun part, right? Red. And the photo is, it's pink, right? It's a pink background. And I think that's why I ultimately got to this kind of pink color. Do you see? You could even see right now, look how warmer that is than that is. And so maybe a little bit more white. And this is pure color. This is high intensity, high chroma. We're not mixing anything into here that's going to knock down this color at all. And that's a choice that you know make, because we could make this background gray. We could make it lots of colors, but the pink works so well with the green, and I went for a real bold background. I'm going to put a little more white in there because I want it a little lighter. I don't want it so dark. Let's see. Not quite enough. Back to the mixing board. That might be the ticket. Okay, let's go with that. All right, again, we have the opportunity to kind of carve out our There we go. That's a nice little curve. Or carve out our subject with our background. And so I like to just kind of put your strokes in all different which ways and even let a little bit of that background peek through with that other color, and that will be a nice vibration of the two. I'm going to switch to my smaller brush here, because I want to really get in here now, get in this area. And make that, oh, it's too watery, okay. And now this is kind of too, I'm going to just adjust this shape a wee bit, and that really helps that. I probably could use a little darker value in there now that I'm looking at it. All right, let's get this going down. It kind of goes down pretty far, which is good for the painting. Yeah. And you see how I just took the edge off that a little bit? Just, I mean, you could even do something crazy like this, and just go straight through this brown with a little, that pink, and soften that edge a little bit. In fact, I like that softening effect. All right, I'm gonna stand back and look at that pretty pink background. I like my shapes that it's made in my pears. And I'm going to do one more thing to help give this a little more energy. And I'm going to put a little bit more red into my mixture. So I have slightly darker value of red. And I'm just going to, I think that might be too dark, because I just want to give it a little bit of, yeah, too dark. A little bit of action back here. I want something's going on, it's alive. We certainly don't want that white bit, but there we go. Just some, and be bold with your strokes, tentative strokes are not energetic sometimes. Look, I'm even going into my pear a little bit with that. Whoops, that's a kind of a big one, but we'll go with it. All right, so you should have like a little dimension going on back here with the pink, a little vibration of the first cool pink, then the warm pink, and then some more of the different value mixing in there. And now we have this great pink on our brush. What to do with it? And so I love to, at this point, I don't want it quite so dark, maybe mixing a little white into it. Use it back into your painting to bring the painting all together and just make it real pretty. Because remember, if you've got the right value, you can use any color. So I'm not putting it into like I wouldn't put it right there, maybe. I don't want to break up a big shape of value with a different color value, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I want to stick it in places where it's going to have a similar value to what's already there. And maybe I'll lighten it up a little and even go into the pear in some of those lighter areas. Remember that there was that mark that was kind of in the pear. Oh, that's too dark. But it can be kind of pink, that mark, I think. But now we've got two kind of lines next to each other there, so I don't really want that. Oh, and remember I said I needed a little darker area back there? I wonder if we could do that with the pink. Let's see. Yeah, I think it blends in a little too much with the background. But now I can use that real dark pink over here, because if you really kind of look hard over there, I kind of do see some pink. You want to be careful you don't, you don't get too or you don't want to get the type of marks that you don't want. Like, do I want a soft mark? Do I want a hard mark? Because at this point everything's very dry and it's producing kind of hard edges. Got some white in there. All right, so no, see that's a perfect example of the value going into this dark area that does not work. You don't want to stick that in there because it looks odd, right? You got to stick with that darker value. Okay. Yeah. All right, yeah, I don't want to go crazy, right? Because then that doesn't look right either. Okay, so clean off my brush, and we're coming to the final home stretch. I'm going to stand back and look, and please let me know if you see any areas that need a little help. Looks pretty good. I want to round out that bottom there. I've got a little pushed in with that pink. I can't wait to see all your pears. Remember I said I wanted to go and put the little highlight in the stem there. So I want to do that with a light green. I still have a lot of pink on my brush, surprise, surprise. Now while I have green, I might as well look where else I can put that, right? Remember, I want to stay with my values, same values, but I could go back in and try to add a little bit more color in some areas. Now, if I use that there, it's going to be too light, so I wouldn't do that, because I want that to be a good middle value. In fact, I probably can come in and carve out that a little bit more. I can go down into my shadow here with some green dots and things. There's a little green back here. There. Kind of go together. Yeah. Okay, one more thing. I do want to get back into that a little bit. So I'm going to look for that brown that I had and put a little more yellow in it, and yeah, and go in here a little, and what I'm doing is I want to make sure that there's a definite edge to this middle value and the light value, and I wasn't really seeing it there. It looked, I looked like I had maybe gone over it with my finger a little, or yeah, see, then you get that nice shape, right, of roundness there. That little bit doesn't belong. Very nice, yep. And here, up into there. Yep, I like it. So it's got your dark over here. That's You've got your middle kind of here and your light there. So I don't like what I did there fully. Kind of go back into it, carve it out. That's such a nice area of the painting, or it could be where you've got that nice bump up there. Not enough yellow. Justin's getting some action shots. Where was I? Up here. Yeah. Well. Yep. That's better. That's better. And this kind of reads like what it is. Yeah. Yeah. All right, now I'm getting fussy, so I'm going to stop. Because you could keep going forever, right? And voila, we will call it done. And hi, I'm Kathleen, and I really hope you enjoyed the video and painted along with me. I wanted to let you know that if you'd like to continue to learn more with me, you could check out my new online course. It's called Essential Elements, and if you go to my website, chroma30a.com, you can click on the top link and it will take you to more information about the course, and you can learn a whole lot more about the things that we talked about today in the video, like line, shape, color, value, space, texture, and form, and how all of those things can immediately affect your artwork and your process of making art. I hope you will join me.